Today we will be talking about causes and concerns of the Civil War. The North expected to unite all the states as one and abolish slavery for good if they won the Civil War.
The South expected to get food that was in abundant supply from the North. The Southern soldiers were hungry. Since a lot of the fighting was being done in the South, the formula was being run. They didn't want slavery to end, nor did they want the government to have too much power over them.
When Abraham Lincoln was elected as president in 1860, Southerners thought that the government was becoming too strong. They did not like to think that the government had the right to tell them how they should live. Southerners also felt that if they stayed in the United States, the North would control them, so this led to Southern secession.
States' rights feature in the start of the war between the struggle of the federal government and individual states over political power. In the Civil War era, this struggle focused heavily on the institution of slavery and whether the federal government had the right to regulate or even abolish slavery within an individual state.
Political difference between the northern and southern states are that the northern and southern sections of the United States developed along different lines. The South remained a predominantly agrarian economy, while the North became more and more industrialized. Different social, cultural, and political beliefs developed. All of this led to disagreements on issues such as taxes, tariffs, and internal improvements, as well as states' rights versus federal rights.
The biggest key disagreements between the North and the South was over states' rights and slavery. Southerners had developed bad feelings toward the North over slavery and the growth of industry. People in the South depended on the North for manufactured goods.
On April 10th, 1861, knowing that supplies were on their way from the north to the Federal garrison at Fort Sumter and the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. Provisional Confederate forces in Charleston demanded the fort surrender. The fort's commander, Major Robert Anderson, refused. On April 12th, the Confederates opened fire with cannons. At 12 p.m. the following day, Major Anderson surrendered.
Western expansion was a problem because as settlers moved west, they also took with them their way of life. For those from the North, this was a life without slaves. Settlers from the South took their enslaved workers with them. North thought slavery should not be allowed in Western lands. South thought slavery should be allowed in the Western lands.
Some of the causes and concerns that we have are things like slavery. The South utilized slaves to work on its large plantations and perform other duties, while they received little to no pay and harsh working conditions. The slaves were sometimes brutally beaten and treated with no respect. Slaves could be rented or traded or even sold to pay debts. The states of North, meanwhile, one by one had gradually abolished slavery.
The Dred Scott decision. Dred Scott was a slave who sought citizenship through the American legal system and whose case eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. Dred Scott was taken to free states by his owners and attempted to sue for them his freedom. They denied his request, stating that no person with American blood should become a U.S. citizen.
States' rights. States' rights refers to the struggle between the federal government and individual states over political power. In the Civil War era, this struggle focused heavily on the institution of slavery and whether the federal government had the right to regulate or even abolish slavery within an individual state.
The election of Abraham Lincoln. When the Republican candidate Abraham Lincoln won the 1860 presidential election, Southerners feared that the Republicans would abolish slavery reached a new peak. Lincoln was an avowed opponent of the expansion of slavery, but he said he would not interfere with it where it existed.
These are some main facts, causes, and concerns about the Civil War. Thank you.